to Mike, and the camera's pointed at Mike. And now he takes him, he throws him. It looks like he's tripped over that bench. They get closer together. They exchange words. And notice the cameraman put his camera down. He's not filming this footage at this point. I'll get into that later. He takes Jeff again, pushes him by his throat. Jeff has his hands up. He doesn't want any part of this. I don't blame him. And then take a look here at the cameraman. He pushes the cameraman. He walks away. And that's what we have here on the footage.
This video you just saw was an altercation when a non-science-based lifter is not agreeing with the science-based lifter. It's one of the most controversial things in fitness right now. Science-based fitness. Let me explain. Jeff Nippard, after uploading a video regarding the situation of his latest study around lengthened partials, divided the fitness community on the ones that agreed and disagreed. And all of this is because of science-based fitness, once again, and the scientific method. So let me explain. So the scientific method, it's basically how most of the studies out there, no matter what type of study, if it's a study of fitness, if it's a study of medicine, if it's a engineering thesis, it's all based on the scientific method, because it's a really simple yet complex process that we all need to make in order to approve a point or approve a hypothesis, which I'm going to explain now. So this way we can optimize our life and live better, avoid certain diseases, have better methods for X, Y, and Z. For this case, better methods for building muscle and losing fat and training for more strength, right? And this is a problem because the fitness community, it's divided in different points of view, in different studies, different beliefs, which is completely fine. But the problem is that some people may take it very seriously, like you just saw at the beginning of this video, right? So I wanted to share with you the scientific method, and it's a 6-step process, which the first one is to ask a question like, how many sets per muscle we need to train each week, right? It's one of the most common questions out there right now in the fitness community, because some people out there don't have the time to train. I only have time for 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and of course I will not be able to get all my sets in that the studies say, right? So this is why so many of these studies have come out throughout the years, because it can prove a point that sometimes some people build way more muscle with less sets. So the second one is to do the research, and here's where we start looking for a lot of information, a lot of analysis, a lot of meta-analysis, a lot of reviews, for example. Those are different studies that actually are part of the scientific method, but are kind of different. They have different types of ways of doing it. And so when you research, this is the most crucial part in my opinion, because some people will have a bias, and based on your bias, you're gonna research from different sources that may say or may not prove your point, right? Maybe some prove your point, maybe don't prove your point. Like for example, you think that 8 sets per week is gonna build muscle. Maybe when you're doing the research, you're gonna see way more articles leaning more than 20 sets per muscle per week, right? And this is where you actually make a guess, which is the third step. And this step is where you actually change your point of view by doing those guesses. So you start guessing that, oh, now that more people can build muscle with 20 or more sets per week, then I guess that that's going to be my case as well. That's going to be my goal, hitting 20 sets per muscle each week. But still, this is not the conclusion of it. And here's where some people actually take conclusions. They guess without doing testing the guess, without testing the guess. And this is where you do the famous word, the experiment. You experiment. okay? And I'm gonna mention something at the end of the video with this word of experimenting, but right now we need to focus that experimenting is where you take some participants in a study to actually prove your point that 20 sets per muscle builds more muscle than 8 sets per muscle weekly, right? So after looking at the guests and looking at the experimentations, now we need to look at the results, because we are human beings. The placebo effect is very powerful, and our bodies react differently to different types of food, training stimulus, environments, animals, emotions, right? We are not built the same even though we have the same DNA, right? We have the different beliefs because also our beliefs tend to change us, right? If you believe you are a high testosterone man or you have a lot of confidence, you may actually have it, right? So that's very powerful as well, and this is where we go to the last one, and he shared what we learned. And so going back to the hypothesis where we take a guess, this is where the science, in my opinion, the science-based community is very, very separated, because based on some observations, some people just guess without actually doing the studies, and so think that, for example, testosterone, it's actually very effective as testosterone, which is actually not, because that was just a hypothesis made. But if you look at the studies and the experiments made with testosterone with real human beings, you're gonna see that actually testosterone doesn't build more muscle than testosterone, and doesn't have even the same effects as testosterone. It's not a steroid, and it will not have the same effects as having steroids in your body, right? And so this is where most of the science-based lifting is, based on this little hypothesis. And this little hypothesis has created a lot of division, right? Because of the different studies, and that's part of it. There's always going to be people that are going to have different points of view, and this is where I want to go to the second part of this video, and it's the controversy we hype right now. And I want to divide this part in 4 different areas, and the first one is the controversy of the different diets. I see a lot of TikToks and a lot of reels in Instagram of these so-called doctors or this so-called nutritionists that tell you that this little micronutrient in this specific food will actually be the change of all your bad things. It will actually cause you the best health in your life because of eating X amount of this specific food every day. And that's not true, because that's just an anecdote. That is just a guess, okay? So when I always go to social media and see this kind of post, I always think to myself, is this true? Is this legit? Is this a real doctor? Always Google it. Always prove your point. Always be skeptical, because if you rapidly believe people like that, you're part of the problem, okay? And that's what the scientific method exists, right? Then is a different of studies. Like I mentioned now, anecdotes, for example. Anecdotes are just self-experimentation that maybe because of the placebo effect of some belief that you have in your mind or the way that your body reacted, that you say, oh wow, this really worked for me, I think this is gonna work for you. Maybe it's not, okay? And that's really controversial right now as well as the choices of different people. Your choices really impact your lifestyle. And so if you say that, for example, this little apple cider vinegar made me lose 30 pounds, actually it was not the apple cider vinegar, it was your choice to be in a caloric deficit for X amount of time that actually made you lose those 30 pounds, not the apple cider vinegar. As simple as that. And that's the main problem we have today in today's science-based nutrition, fitness, whatever you want to call it, right? And the last is the impact of social media. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this section, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Netflix, have you seen those series that they do exactly the same thing? They just tell you that this specific diet or this specific routine is going to change your life because only a certain amount of people helped, without doing any sort of experimentation in a randomized control trials, which is one of the best studies that you can actually read, because it's actually experimentation with different types of people with different you know, metabolisms and bodies and body types and anatomies and all of that. And so I think there's a solution. I think the science-based fitness has impacted me in a positive way, but we need to have a solution. And I think the best solution, in my opinion, as I mentioned before, is to experiment yourself. Experiment with your, do self-experimentation. If you think this diet will be the best for you and you really are positive about it, you like the foods in that diet, go ahead, do it. Like the carnivore diet. Some people are gonna just flame me in the comment section, but I really like the animal-based diet of Paul Saladino, of eating just meat and fruits. Do I only eat those foods? No, I don't. I actually eat vegetables, potatoes, and sometimes corn, rice, and bread, and that's completely fine. It's not gonna kill me. Do I eat that every single day? No, because I know the negative impacts of eating too much of certain foods. And it's up to me, up to my body. My acne, for example. I'm gonna give you my own example with my own body. When I eat some certain amount of foods, like fried foods, high sugar, high fatty foods, for example, I tend to have breakouts. And that's completely good for me, because I know what my body wants and what my body doesn't want, right? So you need to self-experiment. If you see this sort of routine that the fitness influencer tells you is the best, it's up to you to self-experiment or not. But don't be around telling other people that this is the best routine, because that's not true. And that's the biggest problem we have now in social media and with fitness, science-based fitness. Okay? And that's what I like about people like Jeff Nippard and like Dr. Pack and like Milo Wolf and Mike Israel, which he is a doctor, because they actually have made a lot of research. They have read the articles, they have read the studies, they have experimented with themselves. Have you seen the post of Jeff Nippard? He's right now experimenting with the most optimal muscle building routine out there, and you're telling me that, oh, science-based lifting is for nerds. It's not, okay? It's not nerd, okay? It's part of it because we actually see what works and what doesn't work, because what worked 40-50 years ago may not work today, and that's completely fine. Some people are very nostalgic. It's completely fine too. But if they want to do the old method, take more time, spend more time in it because they know it's not as optimal as today, go ahead. If you live with it, if you're happy with it, that's completely fine. But please don't blame the new things. I have seen this a lot. People and some YouTubers, for example, blame this fitness YouTubers because they're doing more work, and they're doing the work and actually giving new insights to the fitness community, and that's so awesome for me. Okay, so don't go out and tell me that that's bad. And so my conclusion is that, okay, do your own research, do everything you can, and again, self-experiment with yourself, because I think that if you self-experiment, you're actually going to see your best results ever. So again, if you're against or in favor of science-based lifting, you have your point, but my thoughts on Mike just assaulting Jeff Nippard was just completely unnecessary, and that's what right rage makes you, and that's what some people that abuse steroids have in their minds, right? So if you're gonna take steroids, make sure to do it in a way that it's not going to hurt you, and that the positives always outweigh the negatives, because if the negatives outweigh the positives, some things like happened to Jeff Nippard is going to occur to you, right? So I really wanted my opinion in this, and I wanted to give my insight and my own help to you guys. If you think that science-based lifting is a scam, it's actually not a scam. It's actually very good, and I really have enjoyed it. Me as an engineering student, which I really like science, I like people like him, people like I mentioned in the video, and other very well science-based influences are there. So if you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos, comment down below what you think about it. I'm going to try to do these videos. I really like documentary style videos. I don't know why I stopped doing them. At the same time, some commentary in it. So see y'all in the next video.